Hello and welcome to the latest of my deep dive videos. Today I'm going to explore the journey of Venus through the sign of Pisces, which begins on the 26th or 27th of January at 2:33 a.m. Universal Central Time on the 27th. Now on the screen now I'm showing exactly where it occurs in all the major cities of the world. Now what I'm going to do is give you the schedule as usual. So what does Venus being in Pisces mean? And what will the equal house chart tell us of the event? So when Venus moves at that exact moment, how are all the planets interacting? What information does that tell us about what we can expect through to the 20th of February when Venus glides into the sign of Aries? Also, what does the solar chart tell us? So how can we relate to this event collectively? And also, in its journey, what are the aspects or angles or relationships Venus is going to forge with other planets? Because there's some mighty impressive ones. And perhaps also on Valentine's Day, a bit of a challenging one too. So I need to share about that with you. And then I'm going to go through each of the 12 zodiac signs, and you can relate to those in terms of your sun or your ascendant. The choice is yours. If you're a returning viewer, thank you so much for joining me once more. As ever, you'll know we're going to do this properly and thoroughly. If you're new to my channel, it's great to have you with me. Please like or comment. I interact with every comment. This is very much a community. Or subscribe. Now, I want to tell you about a really fantastic opportunity for you. And that is, if you see the link beneath this video, you can subscribe for your free daily written horoscope fired to your device each morning. I've been writing these for over 25 years, and I write for Britain's most read daily newspaper, the Metro, have done for about 12 years. So why not get your free daily horoscope to your device each morning? And also within that, I give the dominant planetary influence for that day, as well as the actual interpretation. So please see below. And to understand your personal future prospects in much greater detail, if you give me 3 pieces of birth data, of time, date and place of birth, I can produce your forecast for the next 12 months into the start of 24, but also in my special package of 30% off, my life roadmap analysis helps you to understand some of the repetitive patterns that have occurred in your life. The good ones, how you can work with these more successfully. The more challenging ones, how you can become more intimate with how they have occurred, but also trying to steer around them future forwards. There's 30% off in my special package. Please see the link below. And within this, you also get your free Zodiac, Indian and Vedic forecasts for the next 12 months too. Thank you. So let's start off by exploring what Venus in Pisces means. So it begins in the USA on the 26th, but everywhere else it's pretty well the 27th of January. And so what does Venus in Pisces represent? Well, first of all, we need to understand about Venus itself. Venus is the domicile ruler of Taurus, but also of Libra. Of Taurus, it's very much about values and money. And of Libra, very much about how we relate. Now, of course, in the sign of Pisces, Venus is exalted. And this means it can shine in this sign. If we think about it, it's an opportunity for it to use the imagination and more spiritual dimension of Neptune, and it is going to combine with Neptune, and I will tell you more about that shortly. But also, Jupiter is the co-ruler of the sign of Pisces, and that's very much about the more expansive and higher connection that we can have to people. So can be quite an incredible combination if it works well. Now, people with Venus in Pisces natally can sometimes be quite dreamy, have a love of music or poetry, can be a bit escapist, but also can be a little bit hard to pin down when it comes to a firming up of a relationship, because this is a mutable sign, and because of the rather gassy and non-substantial energy of Neptune, that's represented by people who have Venus in Pisces. Also, Venus in Pisces people can be attracted to lost causes, so looking out for someone who seems to be a bit down on their luck, or perhaps they can play the role of the person who's rescued. But very often people with Venus in Pisces could have some kind of martyrdom role in their situation. But they do find it hard to totally commit, because the need to flex and the mutable energies and the gassy energies of Neptune. And so the mysteriousness of the energy of this sign can make it hard for Venus in Pisces people to totally commit. But obviously, we need to understand how Venus in Pisces is an event we can all relate to. And that's why I'm going to share on the screen now the event chart based on equal house. Now you can see from this that the ascendant is in the sign of Scorpio, which, like the sign of Pisces, of course, is a water sign. And you can see that at 22 degrees 12, it's forging a beautiful, almost exact trine with Neptune. So that gives us an example of what that desire for that perfect but dreamy, rather spiritual relationship could actually feel like. But also, on the event itself, the Sun is in the sign of Aquarius, which is the preceding sign to Pisces, of course. And in terms of equal house, that's in the third house. But the Sun forges an exciting link to Mars, but also to Jupiter. And those two planets are in turn connecting well to one another. So, of course, the Sun in Aquarius is about relating and fairness, can be very friendly, but having Mars in the 7th house can be tricky. So over the next weeks through to the 20th of February, Mars could bring a little bit more robustness to the way we interact, but it is in that superb link with Jupiter in the 5th house of romance. So communication from the Sun, the desire to relate from Mars, but also to be quite fierce about boundaries, but that wonderful Jupiter position in the 5th house. So there could be an action period, so a desire to make something happen within our love life or within our financial sphere, because remember Venus rules that, but thinking about it and articulating it in quite a high energy way. But there's also a few other things I wanted to point out with this particular chart, because if you look at where Juno is, which is the asteroid of deep commitments, that's actually in a conjunction with Jupiter. So therefore that's feeding in to the position of the Sun and Mars. So if you were fortunate enough to have a relationship going at the moment, or you meet someone as Venus moves through Pisces where the communication is really good, I think that could be a very helpful combination. You can also see that there's two symbols just above the moon. One's Mars, one's Venus. This is the midpoint of the position of Venus at 0 degrees in Pisces and the position of Mars in Gemini. So this actually combines with the moon. It's at 19 degrees. It combines in a conjunction with the moon in Aries in the 5th house. So that's again giving us a sense of some action and some desire, which obviously Venus can be about, but to make things move, perhaps a little bit more risk-taking. So that's a very attractive combination. Now, Venus itself is pretty close to Saturn. It's just under 5 degrees in a conjunction, but of course Saturn retains its role in the sign of Aquarius. It's a dissociate conjunction. They actually came into an exact conjunction on the 22nd of January, but in Aquarius. And of course, Venus was in a conjunction with Pluto at the start of the year. So this is a story that's unfolding here, but you can see they're both in house 4. So despite the drama and the thrust of the Sun, Mars and Jupiter all linking along with Juno in such a positive way, and we have that fiery moon in a conjunction with the midpoint between Venus and Mars, the balance of the desire and action of Mars and the more receptive, coquettish energies of Venus, we actually have Saturn in a slowing influence to Venus itself in the 4th house, which is very much more emotional. So as much as we can talk about or have a great patter or flirtiness with someone, it's going to be how we feel or how it feels, which is really going to inform how these next few weeks pan out. And just to say, Eros, of desire, neat passion, is also in the free-spirited sign of Sagittarius in a square with Neptune. So 2nd, 5th house, we could spoil someone rotten, we could give them all that we've got in terms of affection or gifts. It won't necessarily give us what we need, because there could be some distortion to the reality of the situation, which is not really obvious. Also, Mercury in the 2nd house forges a square to Chiron. Now, Chiron's in the 5th house, the wounded healer. So if we're wanting to set our intentions on bringing that romantic situation into our world, we have to be aware that our identity, the 1st house position in terms of Aries of Chiron, manifesting through the 5th house of romance, is challenged by perhaps our values, the 2nd house. So a lot of flirty action, I think, could be in store over the next couple of weeks, but it really boils down to how it feels. Now, I want to share with you on the screen now the event chart in terms of just the solar wheel. So this is how we can relate to the situation based on the first point of the zodiac being 0 degrees Aries, so the vernal point. And this just gives us a different perspective. Venus then ends up in the 12th house, which is very reflective, can be quite linked to reminiscence. It could be that we're going to think very carefully about an ongoing relationship and really decide whether it is going to be viable for our future. Saturn in the 11th house of future plans, and Venus just moved into that place, which is much more about really detaching a little bit and just having some moments of reflection, quiet time, really deciding whether an ongoing relationship really is for us longer term. Now, Mars, you can see in the 3rd house, Gemini, very quick-witted, quick-moving, prepared to send that text message and be a bit more risk-taking, in a great link with Jupiter and also the Sun. So there can be the desire, if you're single, to create something new and special. And there could be an attraction with someone in a low-key, even clandestine way to begin with, based on the collective chart. But I feel that that 4th house position of Venus and Saturn in the event chart, the ingress chart, is really what's going to guide us in terms of how this all feels. We need to feel secure. We need to feel that we're nurtured, that we're appreciated, that the emotional dimension is very strong. So let's have a little look at some of the aspects that Venus is going to make. Now, I've mentioned just before about the 1st of January, Venus being in that conjunction with Pluto, the 22nd of January with Saturn, a real testing point. But from the 2nd of February to the 7th of February, but exact on the 5th, Venus is actually in a square with Mars. This could be the ultimate flirty but secret or clandestine relationship situation. 3rd house for Mars in terms of the collective chart, 12th for Venus. Could there be some contact with someone from the past, an old flame? Maybe they're going to get in contact through social media. Something that seems quite innocent may have a deeper pull that's more alluring. That's going to be interesting. But from the 5th through to the 10th, exact on the 8th, Venus and Uranus forge a great sextile. If ever there was a chance to try and reignite an existing relationship, this is the aspect. But it will mean pushing ourselves to just not get into too much of a routine pattern. Obviously, Venus's rulership of Taurus is fixed, and that love of just being comfortable is challenged by the need to keep the flame burning by being more spontaneous. But a great time to surprise your partner if you're in a relationship by doing something completely different. Now, from the 12th of February to the 18th, but exact on the 14th, we have Venus in a conjunction with Neptune. Now, this can bring true love. There is absolutely no doubt about that. But on the same day, on Valentine's Day, the 14th, the Sun's in a conjunction with Saturn in Aquarius, which is about the future and about the friendship component. So you could have the idealistic, dreamy, going out for dinner, the candlelight thing, all that kind of stuff that Valentine's Day is very much about. But you can have that from the 12th through to the 18th. But Saturn really asks questions as it comes on, or it comes as the Sun comes on to Saturn. Saturn really asks questions. Is this really a viable long-term relationship? So just bear that in mind. And then from the 17th to the 19th of February, well, Venus forges an absolutely lovely link to Pluto. Now, at the start of the year, I told you that Venus's conjunction to Pluto is really going to test out the worth, Capricorn, and the structure of the relationship. Could bring someone in a fated way throughout the year, perhaps in a business situation. But I feel that, that particular sextile can help us to understand the value of a relationship, even if it's not perfect. Now, just to tell you a little bit about Venus's cycle, so 584 days, and usually in each sign from about 24 to 26 days. Now, as you know, it's going to be in Leo later this year for 18 weeks from June the 5th, but it will be in retrograde from July the 23rd through till the 4th of September, and it will forge something called an inferior conjunction, which is when the retrograde Venus comes into an exact conjunction with the Sun on the 13th of August. And the next superior conjunction, which is very important in Venus's cycles, is on June the 4th in Gemini in 2024. So just a little bit of the bigger picture about Venus there. So later this year, it is going to be in that extended journey of about 18 weeks in Leo. And of course, the sign of Leo is very grand, and it's very affectionate and warm, but very proud. So that's going to be interesting. So whatever is going on in your relationship situation now, there is an opportunity to manifest something then, which could bring something really magical to bear. But also, I feel that Venus in Pisces is something that we can gain a lot of spiritual understanding about our motivations. What do we really want in terms of a relationship? What do we really want to give? That gets forgotten. We're so caught up in our needs. What are we prepared to give and sacrifice? But also, are we really clear about what our boundaries are? Because that's another telling thing about Venus's journey through Pisces. If your boundaries in a relationship aren't very strong, and you have a relationship which is not particularly in balance when it comes to the give and take. If you think about Venus's rulership of Libra, it's very much about the concept of fairness, whereas Venus in Pisces can be very much to do with that sacrifice. But how much sacrifice do you want to make? So understanding those boundaries is a very important thing over these next few weeks. Now, please stay with me as I go through each of the zodiac signs from Aries through to Pisces, beginning with Aries. So Aries, for you, Venus being in the 12th solar house until she enters your sign on the 20th of February, where of course you know, she is in detriment, I think it's really is for you, giving you a lot of food for thought. You know, it could be that you start to think very seriously about people who are no longer with us, and that doesn't necessarily have to be just in a romantic context. So this could be a very intense period for thinking hugely about those departed beings. But also, if you are in an existing relationship, you're not quite sure, you may need to give yourself a bit of time to just mull things over, whether it's, you know, when you're having a quiet bath or going for a walk or some reading or listening to some music. You may need to really get in touch with the more soul component of how you're feeling about your relationship. If you're not in one and you feel quite sad about it, remember, you're free to connect with someone. That's a marvellous opportunity. If you're in a relationship which isn't working very well, that's much more difficult. So try to prepare yourself. Think about all the experiences you've had in the past, and once Venus moves into your sign on the 20th of February, that will be a fresh new beginning for you. Now, Taurus, of course, Venus is your ruler. So this part of its cycle for you is very much about the things you have in common. If we all focus on what we don't have in common, well, the list can get ever longer. But do we really celebrate the things that actually work quite well in a relationship? It's easy to get focused on what we feel we don't have. So one of the things I would say is do try to celebrate the things you have in common, but most of all, friendship. It's a very underestimated component of a good relationship, because if you've got each other's backs, you're supportive of one another, it's much easier to get more relaxed and then get into that more sensual vibe, which is very important to you, of course. So I would say, as you're thinking about your longer term future, do try to think about what you have. Again, if you're not in a relationship, see that as an opportunity, and it could be for a social connection over the next few weeks, that you could have a sizzling connection with somebody. And remember, with Uranus in your sign forging that sextile, that's really exciting. This connection could come real quick, and you may need to make a snap decision. Now, Gemini, for you, the position of Venus in Pisces is asking you to think about who perhaps has more of a steering role in a relationship. If you feel that it's a bit too easy for you to get your own way, that actually could be something you don't like. But equally, you can set your boundaries to say to your partner, I want you to make the decision on this situation, or to encourage them in terms of their worldly interactions. But if you are single, I think your desire could be to meet someone who is doing quite well, who has an impressive aura about them, a vibe of success or self-confidence or assurance. That can be very attractive to you. Now, if you're in a relationship that's going well, Venus going through your 10th house could see you and your partner take the next step to commitment. It could be moving in together. It could be getting spliced. Now, of course, the 10th house can also be very much to do with work. If you're single, you could encounter someone in a professional situation, but don't be surprised if you also are attracted to someone from a completely different age group to you. Don't dismiss it. And that brings us to Cancer. Now, Venus in the 9th house is very much about the higher truth. Are you in a relationship where you feel that you can be totally authentically yourself? Yes or no? If there's more no than yes, Venus is going to give you a lot of food for thought, because the 9th house can also be about escapism. And, you know, if you can go on a holiday or an excursion, a change of scene, that could be a good way to rekindle the relationship. But because the Sun is going to be combining with Saturn on Valentine's Day in your 8th house of deep commitment, if you profoundly disagree on a financial planning, or who does or contributes or spends what in the relationship, that could cause some issues. And I think Venus in the 9th house is really seeing you yearning for that higher truth. But if you're single and you go on a break and you connect with someone from the 12th to the 18th with Venus so close to Neptune, it could turn out to be the most magical meeting that you've ever experienced. Leo. Venus moving into this location for you is particularly exciting. The 8th house is about sex and intimacy. Now, if you're somebody who is in a relationship and it's going well, I think the chances are things are going to heat up and get steamy over the next few weeks between you and yours. If, however, you've been having quite a lot of interaction with someone, I think the 8th house is now asking you to weigh up just how profound and deep this tie can be and whether you can invest more emotionally in it or not. But it also could, in a purely financial way, be quite lucky for you over the next few weeks. And it could be that if you are involved in an existing business partnership or you work for yourself, you can have an uptick in income, which is really exciting. Virgo, for you, Venus moves into your 7th house. Venus shines in this location because of its rulership of Libra, the 7th zodiac sign. One of the downsides of Venus energy on the 7th house, or people's natal charts have a lot of 7th house, is one can lose one's identity somewhat by being too much of a people pleaser. But equally, you can use the precise energy of the Sun's combination to Saturn, particularly on Valentine's Day, Sun conjunct Saturn, to still stand up for the things that you're not satisfied with. And although your partner may feel that you're being a bit of a nitpicker, actually if they're important to you, you've got to stay with that. But you can deliver the message in a very diplomatic way, and Venus in the 7th house will help you to do that. But if you're single, Venus in the 7th house linking with Neptune, forging that amazing angle to Uranus, it's all really exciting stuff for you. Now Libra, of course, like Taurus, your sign is governed by Venus, but this is the 6th house. This is where we tend to show a bit more sacrifice. The problem is Neptune being in this location since 2012 has seen you sacrificing way too much, and with all the energy in your 4th house of emotion, we've gone through this many times, and I do apologise. It's just that because Pluto, by the time it fully leaves Aquarius, will have spent 16 years in Capricorn, it's very hard not to talk about the power of that particular influence because Pluto can be so profound. So the people-pleasing part of your nature is very strong. It's where you deploy it. You have to deploy it with care where you feel it will be respected. But the 6th house is great for meeting someone in a very ordinary situation. It could be, in a queue for a train or a bus, or, walking around the supermarket. You may suddenly have an arc of attraction to someone, or of course the 6th house can be a fellow colleague. But in all sorts of relationships, your preparedness to collaborate and to try to find ways to work together practically, 6th house, will work in your favour, but not if you give your power away too much. Now, once Venus moves into Aries on the 20th of February, that's going to be a very special transit for you. And of course, you already have Jupiter there, and you're going to have two wonderful lunations in Aries. The first on the vernal equinox, and the second right at the end of the Sun's journey through Aries, which is a solar eclipse. So some good stuff's coming for relationship wise for you. This one just asking you to stay strong with all that you've learned, not bend yourself into too many pieces to try to be a people pleaser if you feel that you then become invisible. Because actually, having some boundaries makes or will make you more alluring. Now Scorpio, of course, for you on the event chart, the ascendant was in your sign, which means the descendant is in the sign of Taurus, which works well for you on the whole. But of course we also saw that within that more serious chart that Saturn was in your 4th house. So making sure that you feel secure about your connections to others in terms of home, practically, like money, shelter, all those things, really important. But it also means perhaps staying a little cautious, even though Venus in a solar sense is in your 5th house, which is brilliant. It is the placement of marriage, and the combination with Neptune could be really quite special if you encounter someone from the 12th through to the 18th. But it has to feel right. Don't bend on that principle at all. Also, if you're in an existing relationship, the last couple of years has been a real conflict for you. Part of you's wanted excitement. Another part of you may have felt a bit trapped or unable to actually find the inner drive to do anything about it. So whether you've been in a relationship or out of one, you felt a bit stuck and frustrated. But I feel that Venus moving into your 5th house does give you some wonderful opportunities. Do seize them over these next few weeks. Which brings us to Sagittarius. Now, of course, you've got Eros in your sign, linking with Neptune. So the feeling side of life can be a bit challenging for you because you have such an appreciation of adventure, excitement, overcoming challenges by getting on the front foot. And that's what I love about Sagittarius people. But Venus moving into Pisces is your 4th house. If you want to add to your family, this could be a very deep and profound period. Perhaps there is going to be great news, or maybe it is that you need to feel very safe or want to get to know someone more within your everyday environment, or go for walks in nature. You know, not necessarily quite as gregarious as you're known for. Of course, the Sun, your ruler, Jupiter and Mars are all in a glittering alliance, but it's what's underneath that which is important. So there can be some flirty interaction, but I feel look to go for someone or to develop the more emotional dimension in an existing relationship. Capricorn, for you, Venus moving into your 3rd house means that someone is going to be hanging on your every word through to the 20th of February. You may feel, what's new, Patrick? This is absolutely the everyday occurrence for me. Absolutely. So you're going to have even more ability to woo with the way you convey your ideas, especially when Venus and Neptune combine from the 12th through to the 18th. But it's absolutely vital that you stay utterly sincere. That's not to say that you're going to try to be insincere, but if there is somebody that you encounter that you like but you're not quite sure, then I wouldn't get too much into the flow of it. Just hold back a little bit. Now, Aquarius, Venus moving into Pisces is brilliant for your bank accounts. Now, obviously, we've all been experiencing an increase in the cost of living. Not necessarily such an increase in the money coming into our homes. So for you, Venus into the 2nd house, it works like magic each year. So even if it's an unexpected little flutter or a refund on something, or you find some money in a coat, those may seem frivolous, but they can happen with Venus in the 2nd house. But remember, this is also a very sensual location through Venus's rulership of Taurus. So your appreciation of good food and good wine can be a great way to connect to someone you date new, or to revive an existing relationship. Of course, with Uranus, your modern ruler, in that sparky angle to Venus, that also gives you the opportunity to try and be a bit more inventive. So, for example, if your partner tends to do the lion's share of the cooking, why not cook a meal for them, but don't tell them? Get it all ready, spring it as a surprise. That's something that would be really lovely. But if you're single, having the Sun forging that link with Mars and Jupiter can give you a real sense of alluringness and confidence to just go for it. And, you can be remarkably shy, because you like to chat and the friendship side of things is very important to you. But actually opening up how you feel can be a bit challenging. But you've got a great opportunity here. Believe in yourself, believe in your attractiveness. Mars in the 5th house going forwards, linking with Jupiter, the planet of luck, linking with the sun. I think a glamorous makeover is in store for me as well as you, but go for it. Which brings us to Pisces. So last as ever but never least, Pisces. So obviously Venus arriving in your sign brings to a close a period of time since the 2nd of January where you may have been in deep thought about what to do about certain involvements and relationships. And now this would be for you too a great time to really reimagine your personal appearance and presentation, and a chance also to begin again. So if there has been a separation, or you have been thinking about someone from your past a lot through the start of this year, it really wouldn't be a surprise. But now you can draw a line in the astral celestial sand and start to move forwards. And move forwards you can, particularly with that link, that electric link with Uranus. So a surprise text message or invitation could be very exciting. Of course, the Sun and Saturn do retain their presence in your 12th house. So that can just diminish a little bit your sense of self-confidence to move forwards. But I feel that if you have felt a bit torn about an old relationship or a separation, you can start to edge forwards now. You know, if it is hurting, it's because it meant so much, and it meant so much because of your capacity to really love. And remember, you know, you are very idealistic about relationships. So if you have had a deep connection with someone, you don't just cut it out. You know, it's something that you will work with for a long time, and you can be enormously sentimental. So it's entirely understandable if at this time you're still going through quite a delicate phase, and things really will start to become more dynamic once the Sun moves into your sign. We have the Pisces new moon, and you will have the arrival of March the 7th of Saturn, and that's all going to bring you much more in the present, but also that points all to new beginnings all round, even new energy in an ongoing relationship, which may have bumped along the bottom at times. It can rejuvenate itself yet if it's meant to, or perhaps you're meant to just move on and start afresh. Remember, if you would like to get your 12-month personal forecast and life roadmap analysis with my special package of 30% off, please see the link beneath this video. You can still get your free general zodiac, Vedic and Chinese general forecast for the next year within that package. Thank you so much for joining me. It's been a real pleasure being with you. Take care and all the best.